All right, man. So welcome to Rybarian Radio. Thanks for coming on the pod. Appreciate it.
Thank you for
Uh,
having
so
me.
yeah, so why don't we start off with maybe a little bit of an intro, just kind of tell the audience who you are and what you do right now.
Sure. So my name is Isaac Lopez. I'm going to start all the way over there. Everyone calls me Giddy. It's been a nickname since I was a kid. Um, I'm a husband, a father, an entrepreneur, and somewhat of a health nut. Um, I married my high school sweetheart. I've been with her. We've been married for 10 years, together for 18, coming in June. We have two beautiful little girls, 4 and 7. Um, and yeah, I have a business called Bashmouth Energizing Gum, and I also work with really good friends of mine at Hostel as their sales director.
That's awesome, man. So
Thank
yeah, you mentioned you're a health nut. I think that's where kind of you and I first connected.
you. Yes.
Um, just kind of broed out.
Yeah.
Especially like on the fitness side of things. So it's just kind of curious, kind of how, because I feel like everyone has sort of a fitness origin story of how they first got into it. So I'm always interested in hearing about how someone first started training, how they first kind of fell in love with the gym. So just kind of curious about how that happened for you.
Oh man, you're talking about the gym bug, you mean?
Yeah, that's it.
So my friend, he started working at GNC. His name's Brandon, and he just asked me. I was first of all, I was a scrawny kid. I was maybe 120 wet in high school. My nickname for my family. I'm Spanish, by the way. My nickname in Spanish was Flaco. That means skinny. And to this day, they still call me that, which irks me because I'm not. And so that I was always like that. So he told me one time like, "Hey, do you want to go work out?" He's like, "I you there's this new pre-workout that they just came out with. It's called NO Explode. We need to try it. Let's work out." And I was like, "Okay,
Classic.
all right." I was like, "Okay." We went to Planet Fitness. I started working out, and I was like, "Man, I feel really freaking good. I feel like I can lift up the world." I was like a strong, skinny kid. Um, and then for some reason, there was this thing that I really wanted to do, and that was bench 135. Uh, every week, every Monday, because that's the International Chest Day. Every Monday, it got closer and closer, and then I just couldn't do it. And one day, I was just like, you know what? Like, put on the 45s, and as soon as I put that 45 down my chest and I got it up, and I was like, "Whoa, yeah!" And I got so hyped. That's when everything hit me. That's literally how it all began, and I was hooked. And I was like, "Oh my God, there's a goal to this, and I can do
Yeah.
it." And that's how it hit me, man. And then after that, I started working at GNC as a part-time employee, and I started gaining size, and then I went to school for this as a sports nutritionist, and everything just trickled down like a snowball effect.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
It was
that's
quite a journey.
that first kind of like just getting a taste of that kind of first those first accomplishments when you first hit some of those lifts that you've been uh, gunning for, and just kind of realizing like, this body, like I can actually change it. I can get better. I can train and get stronger and bigger. It's just, I think that's what happens for a lot of us, that feeling, right?
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, for me, it was just like I actually just started training on my own. I didn't really have anyone around me that was kind of guiding me.
Hmm.
So I don't really know how it kind of started. I think I was just an angry teenager. I wanted to be bigger and stronger and tougher. I just didn't want to be, scrawny. Same like you. I think I was like 140 when I graduated high school. Just like skinny fat, like no muscle. Like always was athletic, always played soccer, always did some kind of martial arts and stuff like that, but just wanted to get stronger mainly, right?
Yeah.
So it just started for me just like in the basement, just like doing push-ups in the basement, and then cuz I always liked working out from home.
Mhm.
That was always for me, that was always the thing. I never really liked going in like the gym atmosphere and being like around a lot of other people. I always liked just kind of doing my own thing. So it just kind of started where just doing push-ups in the basement. Then next thing you know, I got a barbell and some weights, just like those old like cement ones with like the plastic coating on them.
Yeah.
Um, and just kind of got in from there and then just started building. And next thing you know, I've got my home gym in my parents' basement and then just like adding to it over the years. And then also going to a real gym to get like better equipment, and same thing, just like it just snowballs, right? It's kind of crazy how that happens. Um, so like for you, like how did your training kind of evolve over time? Because I feel like I've never been able to stick to one kind of training. For me, I just love fitness and physical culture in general. It's never been like one aspect of it. Like sometimes people kind of stick to bodybuilding or powerlifting or calisthenics or whatever, and they just stick to that long term. Whereas me, I've never really made too much significant progress in any one area because I'm always just like, I just love it all. So I just go through kind of like seasons really with my training where like I'm obsessed with calisthenics for like 6 months and then I'm like, oh, like lifting heavy is cool too. Like I'm going to do that for a bit. Um, and so I'm just kind of all over the place with my training style. So I'm just kind of curious for you how that's kind of evolved over time.
So I was extremely obsessed as soon as I started getting results. And I was obsessed with like just bodybuilding, just
Hmm.
like the way that how big they were and how they developed their muscles. Like I know this sounds sort of silly, but like how every fiber in these guys were like popping. So I was like, I want to mimic exactly what they're doing. And
Hmm.
that's truly how it started for me. Like I would go on YouTube and I would look up Jay Cutler, for instance, and Ronnie Coleman, all these big bodybuilders, and I would literally mimicking their workouts. And as soon as I was like mimicking everything, I was like, oh my God, I'm seeing results. I see the chest development. I see my traps popping out. I see my shoulders coming out. I was like, oh my God, I think this is it right here. I think I'm gonna just copy everything they're doing plus whatever I'm doing to study. Like I can add those into it. Like, okay, flies, right? For instance, like they open up your chest. But what if I incorporate these hack presses and really tighten the chest even more? And my theory is always like, um, always do your reps all the way to 15 because your mind always stops at 10. Why not that extra five, like where it really, really hurts? Is that's where there's growth. So why
Hmm.
not incorporate that? So I'll do like 15 flies, 15 presses right after that. So I'm incorporating like a little bit of cardio in there. So that's how I feel like bodybuilding has been a big like thing in my life where I was just like, I want to look like that, but not really. I just want to mimic their workouts and have that same pain, that same,
That mindset, that training mindset, right?
yeah, exactly. So bodybuilding has been my style and I haven't changed it. I think it works. Um, I know cardio and different workouts like are for different people, and I've tried a few, and I'm just like, I don't have like my cup is full when I do
Hmm.
those. And
Yeah.
I've been an athlete as well. Like I'm good at everything I do as far as like sports, like water polo or basketball or football, anything like that. I could do it all day, but it doesn't fill my cup up.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's nice. I'm kind of a little bit envious of that. Maybe you find one thing you can just stick to it for a long time. It's not me. I kind of ping pong all over the place. I like a little bit of everything. Um, but yeah, but I think a lot of people start off in bodybuilding, especially I feel like um, that time maybe like anywhere from like the 90s through the or kind of early 2000s. I think like when everyone thinks of fitness, they think of sort of Arnold and bodybuilding and the gym and Planet Fitness. Like that's kind of like that, like that's like mainstream fitness. So I think that's where most people's kind of entry point is.
Yeah.
And I think that style of training, it's also very like obviously hypertrophy focused. So that's when people kind of see the results physically, in the mirror pretty quickly, and that's what kind of hooks a lot of people. So I think that's where a lot of journeys start for sure. Um, but yeah, so you're still kind of like, do you have any current goals like right now? Are you trying to do anything right now? Just kind of like maintain or get better in any one specific area?
But truly, my goal is longevity.
Yeah.
Um, I absolutely train
I
so
think
that
once you get over 30, it's like you start thinking, hey, maybe I should, maybe longevity is kind of important actually.
it's extremely important to me. Like, having kids and just a business, and your mindset just shifts a tiny bit.
Hmm.
Obviously, I literally train every day at 5 in the morning. I try to have like that CEO entrepreneur mindset where I can get that done. Because if I don't get that done, I start thinking about it like, oh, I gotta go to the gym. I gotta go to the gym. I feel like I haven't earned my day by doing that. And so by doing so, I don't really have like a goal. I guess I do want to maintain. I feel like I'm in a very healthy state of mind and weight, and because before, when I was really really into bodybuilding, I was weighing I was weighing a lot, and sleep apnea came into play, and
Oh, for sure.
yeah, and I'm still working on that too. Um, but all these health things kick in when you're heavier, and so to me, I'm just like, that's not worth like the anxiety that I have over this. So I just want to stay healthy. I want to look good. I want to do exactly what Seth, what's his name from Axel and Sled, the owner for
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name, but
Seth
his
Ferozi or something like that.
yeah, I think
He
that's it.
says
Yeah,
he says to this day, I'm still gonna say it too. Like, you want to be functional and fuckable. And I'm sorry for my cussing, but
that's all good.
I want that. I wanna feel good. I want to keep up with the girls, but I also want to look good for my wife. Like, when I take off my clothes, because that's what matters the most. It's like, as soon as you take off your clothes, and she looks at you up and down like, oh my God. I'm like, okay, so something's working. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for
So
sure. Yeah, I agree with that. You want to look good, but you want to be functional too, right? I
exactly.
think yeah, I think yeah, a lot of people go through that phase where they just want to get as big as possible
Yeah.
too, with like with bodybuilding and powerlifting and whatever, and especially when you're natty too, right? Like that involves gaining some fat for sure. Like you can't stay super lean and get as big as possible. Like I know I've gone through those phases, especially like in my early 20s, just like I don't care, I just want to get as big as possible,
Yeah.
and kind of like nutrition wise, just eating everything and anything. Like just thinking back on some of the things I did, just like because I've always been kind of a hard gainer, right? Like I'm naturally like I'm a naturally pretty skinny, pretty small frame kind of guy. So for me to gain weight, I have to eat a lot, and it really takes a lot of effort. Um, and it's pretty much impossible for me to stay lean and get big at the same time. So it's kind of like a bit of a trade off for me. So I remember just like waking up and just like pounding maltodextrin shakes, and I'm just thinking back. I'm like, man, I almost gave myself diabetes of all the stuff I did just trying to get bigger. And I just remember too, like, yeah, like you look good with like with your clothes on, you look good, you look full and big and whatnot. But then it's just like tying your shoes, like you get out of breath, just like
Oh my
bending
God.
over
Yeah.
and tying your shoes or whatever. You don't feel good. Like I feel so much better. And that's the thing too, like as you get older, you just learn your body, you learn to listen to what your body's telling you. Um, and I've just found just like staying lighter and leaner, just I feel so much better. My energy levels are higher. Like that's the most important thing when you have a career and kids and everything. Like you have to feel good because life is so busy and chaotic. You can't be worried about just eating as much as possible and feeling super full and just getting as big as possible. Like it doesn't work unless it maybe comes naturally for you, right? But like for me, it just doesn't. So um, yeah,
Absolutely, man. I agree. It's just, yeah, I can't. I remember I would love to just like look like those guys, and that's just not my genes. I can't do that. Obviously, there's drugs
yeah,
involved. I can't do that. Like, that's just
yeah,
silly. So
yeah. Like those guys. I mean, they have you know not only do they have all the genetics, they have all the drugs, they have their entire life is around that, right? It's so unrealistic.
No, yeah, it's not. So I'm just like, right now in the state of my head, I feel good as long as I can still train heavy because that's what I do. I train as heavy as I can go, still doing the 15 reps. That way, because I am a hard gainer, so I have to train harder.
hmm
Because if I don't train hard, I lose my muscle mass quickly.
Oh, for sure. Me
Uh,
too. Yeah.
so I've noticed that about me where I'm just like if I half-ass things and I'm like, okay, let me do like 8 reps of this very lightweight, I'm not maintaining, I'm losing. So I go
Yeah.
hard on everything, and then there's injuries though. If I go heavier, my freaking shoulder gives up.
Oh,
Or
it's a balance, right?
exactly. So
Yeah.
longevity.
Oh, for sure. And I feel like I have this theory that I've thought about a lot too is like sort of the hard gainers, like those are the people that I think a lot of the time stick around in fitness and it becomes a lifelong hobby because every little gain you make, you just have to scratch it out over a long period of time and it just comes so slowly, but then when it does happen for you, it's so great, right? So because I feel like looking back like in high school and seeing like some of the guys, some of the friends around me where it's just they had such better genetics, they just pick up a dumbbell and like a month later they're looking shredded and they're bigger than me, right? But it's like they didn't last, like it didn't last because they got gained so easy, and some of them obviously were juiced up kind of like later on in high school and into their early 20s, whatever. But a lot of times it doesn't last because their gains came so easily. It didn't become part of their lifestyle. It was just this little tiny part they did. It came super easy, came and went, no problem, right? But for all the hard gainers, where it doesn't come easy genetically, it's like you have to make your whole life around that almost, right? Just to get any kind of result. So I feel like it sticks longer because you appreciate it more.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely, man. Like you mentioned high school. In high school, I was a little guy, but I wasn't. I was. It's not that I wasn't popular, but I knew everyone. I was the kind of person that was friends with literally every single person. Recently, um, there's been like I still live in my high school area, unfortunately, which we have like we're gonna move within 1 or 2 years away from Florida. And anyways, I'm working out and I noticed these guys in a little group. They were the football players back in the day, and they were like the biggest guys there too. Um, but I recognized them, and they somewhat recognized me, and they're like, "Whoa, man, you got gigantic!" And I surpassed them,
hmm
right? And I'm looking because I every now and then I'll wear a tank top, so I have veins and my shoulders are popping out, and it feels so freaking good that I look and feel good, and they look like shit because they
Yeah.
have the beer gut, they have fat arms, they're doing lightweight with like horrible form, and I'm like, yes, I won in a
Yeah.
way because naturally that's a little bit of a competition,
Oh, for sure.
and you're thinking about it, you're just like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, man, high school is a jungle, man. It's crazy how that stuff like sticks with you, even though it doesn't matter at all. But it's
Oh,
just
it
something
does.
about that time period in your life when you're just trying to figure stuff out. And it's just like a, kill or be killed kind of mentality, like in the hierarchy in high school, right?
So it's
So
so
that
silly.
kind of stuff just sticks with you for some reason. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, so like, I mentioned some of the things with me, like with nutrition, like pounding maltodextrin shakes. So I don't know with you, is there any kind of like when looking back on some of the things you did and kind of how that's evolved over time and kind of how you're eating right now that you find that's working for you?
So bad. I was like you, extreme hard gainer. Um, I would too just eat anything with a ton of carbs.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I do that now too, but in a smart way. Like back in the day, I would eat anything and everything because I thought, oh, intake more calories. Calories is what counts. So, McDonald's and fast food and anything with high protein and high carbs, I would inhale as much as I can. protein shakes, weight gainers, literally anything in sight. I would just chug it and eat it as much as I could, and I would make myself sick.
Hmm.
I would be in the toilet a lot, like, got so unhealthy. And I thought
Some
I
of
was,
those weight gainer shakes, right?
yeah, man. And gosh, like knowing now what I know now is like, why would I even touch that? Like, why?
Mm.
So yeah, man. And then now I'm look, carbs are your best friend. They truly are. They give you good source of energy. It just depends on what carbs you use. Like I, for instance, use in my pre-workout, I put at least 50 grams of cluster dextrum.
Hmm.
Cluster dextrum is fast and slow release carbs. And since I work out in the morning, I don't have time to eat. Um, so I put like 50 grams on my pre-workout. I put a little bit of creatine because creatine is great for your brain, beta alanine for fatigue. Um, and I mix all that up. It's a little thick pre-workout, but I mix a lot of liquid in it. So that way your body needs water, right? It needs liquid. So I put a lot
Hmm.
of liquid into that, and just chug it as fast as I can. And there it is, man. There's my first carbs. And then
I've
throughout,
tried that. I've tried that carb before too. It's really light in your stomach. I forget what the name for it, like osmolality, right? Or osmo something like that, where it doesn't stay in your gut for a long time. It absorbs really quickly, right?
that's it. That's exactly it, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So CDX by Hostel, and I'm putting a plug in there. CDX is a fantastic product. I recommend that literally to everyone, especially like those gym goers that go in the morning. Like you need something in your system. Like you need something. Um, even if you're fasting, because that's also what I do. And I don't know if you would consider that fasting since I'm consuming carbs before any food. But since I'm burning it out right then and there, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But it's so good, man. Like I don't fatigue. I feel fuller. My muscles are fuller. My pumps are like they just feel like there's so much blood in every fiber.
Yeah.
So carbs, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that you're saying that, I kind of feel like I haven't taken that stuff in a long time. But now that you're mentioning it, it kind of makes me want to try it again and see how I can implement it because I'm kind of like you too. I train like first thing in the morning. So typically I don't. I train fasted and I have good workouts fasted, especially in terms of like cognitively
Hmm.
um, super sharp. I find my workouts are really good. But I find that there's also a bit of a trade off where it's like I also burn out a lot easier when I'm training fasted.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I feel like that's just my body type, especially like I do better with carbs with having some carbs in my diet. And it's like I feel like my body just burns so quickly. So the workout is good cognitively. I feel sharp. Energy levels are pretty good and everything. But I tend to burn out a little bit easier. So I feel like that might be a good idea. Because if I try and eat anything before, it doesn't work out too good. Even if I just have like a little bit of fruit or something, I feel like I need even that. I need like at least an hour and a half of digestion before I train.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I feel like I'm just burping the whole time, and it just kind of sits in my stomach. So that's a good point. I might give some of that a shot for my
Yeah,
next
man.
training.
I highly recommend that. And then like the stack that I just said with the creatine monohydrate, the beta, um, and then whatever source of pre-workout you have, any pump, any natural pumps that you can get, and
Hmm.
adding carbs into it, like it just makes a big, gigantic difference. Like recently, I just ran out of CDX, which should be coming today. Um, but before, like I would take my pre-workout with no carbs, and I would just be I was sluggish in the
Hmm.
gym, and I was just like, oh, I don't really want to be here. I feel like my pumps aren't lasting, and you could tell, you could definitely tell.
Oh,
So
for sure. Yeah, and like the longer you've been training, the more you kind of pick up on those things, right?
mhm.
Like someone who's just getting into training, you wouldn't be able to tell like, oh, was that a bad sleep? Like, am I kind of run down? whatever, like you wouldn't really be able to know if you haven't been doing it a while. But I feel like once you've been training for 10 plus years, it's like, oh, I just need some carbs, right?
Y-
Sort of thing, right? Like you can kind of just tell your body needs it, right?
Yeah, especially
Um,
those hard gainers, man.
yeah, all for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is kind of like a typical day of eating for you look like right now on a training day?
So my
You
first thing
mentioned the
that,
pre-workout stuff.
uh-huh, that's
Yeah.
the first thing that goes in my body is that pre-workout, just because it's like anybody's coffee, right? Like I know my for instance, my wife, she has to have her coffee. Like otherwise, like if she doesn't have her coffee first thing in the morning, she's in a little bit of a funk. With
Yeah.
me, I have to have this first thing in the morning to just like lift me up. And of course, it give me that energy source. I don't eat, so I train about 5 o'clock. I don't eat again till maybe 11, 12 o'clock. Um, I feel like I'm, even though that's technically not fasting, I feel like I'm fasting. Um, and then after that, I eat my good source of natural eggs, oatmeal, fruits, berries, pineapple, and then a gigantic thing of water. And that's how I can break my fasting with good fats, good protein, good sweets, a little bit of everything in one. Um, and then about 3 hours later, I'll eat my food, which would be like either sometimes fish, um, or chicken. I try not to, honestly, I've been trying to do the Mediterranean diet for the last like good 6 months or something, just because of blood work and things like that. I feel like um, my genes need the Mediterranean diet.
Hmm.
Um, and I've been sticking with that. So lunch, right? I eat that, and then again, 2 to 3 hours later, I'll eat a snack. It's either like a protein shake or a protein bar, something with a little bit of protein and carbs in it. Then it's dinner time, and then I'll eat whatever my wife cooks. Because we have to sit down for dinner, and the girls have to eat their dinner. So
Yeah, the family stuff for
yep,
sure.
yep. And then after that, put the girls down. Then I'll eat again, and this is where nighttime is where I kind of mess up all the time. But it's okay, right? I'm living my life, and the sweetness kicks in, and so if there's cake there, if there's cereal there, I will eat something that's like that sugar craving because I have to have it. Um, and then while I'm in bed, maybe I'll snack on some chips, maybe. And that's really it. And then a protein shake before I go to bed.
Nice.
So I'm consuming about maybe 2 to 3,000 calories, maybe, and
Are
that's
you counting
maintaining
stuff, or like counting your macros and calories, or just kind of just generally keeping an eye on stuff?
generally keeping.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. I try not to do the whole counting my macros, even though I should, but it'll stress me out because then I'll think about it. I'll overthink it. I'm like, damn it, I'm not consuming enough. I'm not consuming enough because I'm a hard gainer.
Yeah.
That's all I'm thinking. So I'm just like, you know what? As long as I'm happy with like my stomach being nice and fulfilled, like we're all good.
Yeah, for sure. Especially too that you're just a super active person. You're training really regularly. Like you can get away with a lot of that late night snacking and whatnot. It might not be optimal, but for
No.
your lifestyle and how how hard you're training and being active and super busy, you can get away with it, right?
Yeah.
That's something I see people like. It's like, yeah, you can do that stuff, but you got to earn it, man. Like you just can't. Not it's not for everyone. Like there's a lot of people that shouldn't be eating chips in bed, but if you earn it, like whatever, like you can get away with that for a while. But there's some people that they don't deserve it. They can't get away with that kind of thing, right?
What's funny is like I still I train people every now and then because I used to be a trainer as well,
Hmm.
and I tell them two things: don't ever step on the scale, and if you want to enjoy your life, have a beer, have your sweets, do so, but you better get your ass up and train hard as hell in order to make those two count.
Hmm.
And so they're like, okay. But that's the first thing that they do. They step on the scale every single day because they think that they're going to notice a difference. And they eat whatever the hell they want when they're not training as hard as they told me they would.
Yeah.
So but yeah, that's been my rule, and I still say that to this day. Like, don't step on the scale. Just don't, because that plays such a crazy trick on your brain.
For sure. And it's so variable, especially if it's like all the time, if you're doing it daily, right? Um, just, if you're holding on to a little bit of water or you just took a big dump, like whatever, like that can totally change what's on the scale, right? Like if you're gonna do it, like I would say like do it like once a week,
Yeah,
maximum, not like a daily thing, right? Um, but it's more about what you're seeing in the mirror and how you're feeling, I think, more than anything. The scale, especially I find, especially for women, like that's a big one. It's like don't worry about what the scale says. Just like try and get stronger and see how you look in the mirror. That's the most important thing. Because when people start strength training too, sometimes they gain a little bit of muscle and
for sure.
they get a little bit of water pulled into the muscle and stuff like that. Like you're not gaining bad weight. It's not. So the scale's not going to differentiate that, right?
No, and women also, they retain more water than men. And so
Mm-hmm.
if there's a couple that are training and he loses more weight and gains more muscle and she's like still frustrated that she's still stuck there, it's because naturally they hold more water. It's just the way it is. They got to work a little bit harder, which I feel for them, and I really do, because I train a lot. I used to train a lot of women, and that was their biggest thing is like, oh, I feel like I'm not losing weight, and I was like, well, what are you eating? Are you drinking enough water? Are you eating enough fats? Are you training hard enough? Like all these questions in order to do all that, because that's what happens, man. They retain a lot, unfortunately, and you know,
Yeah, and just having patience too, realizing it doesn't come that fast. Like it
no,
happens over a long time, right? If you spent the last 10 years getting fat, you're not gonna lose it in a month or two, right?
no, everyone wants
Um,
it now.
yeah. Oh, for sure.
They want it.
Um, yeah. So yeah, so what about like supplements? Anything like you mentioned a couple you taking kind of just general health stuff as well, or just all kind of performance supplements? What's in your stack right
So
now?
I used to work. I used to be a sales regional director for GNC. So naturally, supplementation um, comes into play for me. I tell people, and I tell myself this too, because I have to remind myself: take your foundation. Your foundations are your multivitamins to fulfill your nutritional gaps. Your fish oil, good for anti-inflammatory, good for your brain to omega fatty acids. Your body needs it, especially if you're not consuming fish. Um, your probiotics. We all have digestive issues in some sort. Um, and protein. Those are your four main foundations. Protein, obviously, you need it for muscle development and also for brain. Everything has to do with brain and heart. Um, but I take those four things. I also add CoQ10 for your heart. I also add astragalus for your immunity. Um, what else do I take? Um,
I don't know if you
um,
need to take that much extra vitamin D living in Florida. You probably get a lot of
oh my God.
sunshine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no vitamin D, but I suggest that for everybody, just because,
Yeah.
regardless, even if it's a tiny bit, like take that.
Yeah,
Um,
especially if you're not spending any time outside and especially if you're kind of not anywhere near the equator, like even if you are outside, you're just not getting that much.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, even me, I'm like in this dungeon. Sometimes I don't see the sun, but when I do see the sun, like I'm hanging out with the sun for a while.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah,
get enough. I'm like a plant, man. I just need a little bit of sun, and then I like flourish. I feel. I'm like, oh my God, okay.
that's
Um,
awesome.
but yeah, I take apple cider vinegar. I take that in the morning, and I take little gummies. I used to do. I alternate honestly with mother's milk with a liquid or a
Yeah.
gummies. And every now and then I'll juice. I'll do like some juicing, like as far as like putting beets and celery and things to kind of like spike my entire like system. Like, whoa, these are natural sources of every powder that you've been taking for a while. Um, and that's really it. I try not to overdo it. and I try to be basic. I try to implement that with with my kids and my wife, and I'm like, hey, you have to try this. And of course they're like, this is
Yeah.
disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the
But
same way. I'm the vitamin police uh, in my family for sure. Like,
you have to be. Yeah.
yeah, it's got to be one person in the family doing that kind of stuff, right? Even with my baby, giving her vitamin D drops, I'm just making sure everybody's getting their vitamin D. How far north we are up here in Edmonton, it's like everybody needs to be taking their vitamin D. When I hear people are not taking vitamin D, I'm like, are you crazy? Like it's so foundational. It's like it's the one vitamin our body produces on its own from the sun. Like it's like we absolutely
You
need
need
it.
it. Yeah, you need it.
Um, and just people, and it's so easy. It's like it's not like a big horse pill. Like most of them are little tiny soft gels or they're drops or whatever. It's so easy to take, and it has like it's such a big bang for your buck. It's not expensive. Um, yeah, it just blows my mind when I hear people aren't taking vitamin D. It's just
Yeah,
it has so much carryover, right?
it does. I also, to kind of piggyback on that, I also feel like magnesium is something that everyone should take.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Um, it's part of the nerve system as well. It helps you with the nerves, and relaxation for your muscles, or anything that you feel like you have pain with. Like if you have migraines or if you have aches, magnesium is your best friend. Like I take magnesium. I try to take magnesium every night for like relaxation,
Yeah.
with a little bit of ashwagandha.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like those two combined like kind of help out.
Oh, for
So,
sure. Yeah, magnesium is part of my nighttime stack for sure too. That's another one of those like similar to vitamin D,
yep.
where it not only is just like involved in so many different processes in the body, but it's also pretty deficient in most people's modern diet. That's another big like because that's how it is with supplements, right? It's like what's the most bang for your buck, right? Because
Yeah.
you could take a million different kind of supplements and nutrients to plug little holes here and there in your diet, but like what are the foundational ones that are going to give you that are going to cover the most bases, right? So yeah, magnesium is definitely one of those ones as well. Yeah, that's awesome. So like what other than, supplementation, training, kind of I know like we'll get into the cold plunge talk because I know that that's a big one for both of us. But is there anything else kind of like, general health performance kind of habits that you've implemented? Because I feel like I kind of cycle in and out through a bunch of different stuff, but like nothing has really stuck for me that has been that big, like sort of meditation, breath work, journaling. I kind of do these things on and off, but it's never really been able to stick in my routine as like a real staple. So I don't know if you have any of those things.
Well, actually, I do. I back a few years back in 20, everything started for me as far as my mind goes, right? Because your mind is a muscle as well. You have to train your mind. Everything started with that one on in 2020. That's when the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you're like, you have to revisit your brain and say, okay, how do we figure this thing out? Like, should we panic on the world? You literally have the world on top of your shoulders, meaning your family,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
How do I do this? How do I figure this out? How do I not lose myself? Um, so I got into meditation. You mentioned meditation. I got into that. I actually got my wife got me that Christmas 2020. She got me a session with a monk on how
Oh,
to
that's
meditate,
awesome.
which is freaking awesome. And he was teaching you like the breath work, and that made me realize even more. I don't know how to breathe. Like, as silly as that sounds, I don't think anybody knows how to breathe. We I remember my wife and I, we went to some workshop, and there was a doctor there in that little workshop, and I think he was a cardiovascular doctor, and he was telling us how when he would do surgeries and anything like that, he notices that right now this generation, this heart is so, not that it's shallow, but it's very like, it's very high in the chest when it should be very hollow, right? Maybe. And he's like, there's so much research that shows that nobody's breathing and everyone's breathing very quickly instead of like breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth.
Yeah.
And there's a book, I don't remember what it's called, but it was about breathing and how people aren't breathing from the nose.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it's called Breathe. Is it
I
James
think it is
James
too.
Nestor or something like
That
that?
that's it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I read
Um,
that. Yeah.
and if you know this, like breathing from your nose changes your facial structure, which is insane.
Yeah.
The fact that so many people are mouth breathers changes the way that their freaking chin and their teeth and everything like that. It's like it's insane what breathing does to you. That's why we're like, oh my god, we don't know how to breathe.
Yeah. That book
We're
was a game changer for me.
insane. So that's what started everything. It's like, oh my god, I'm not breathing through my nose. I'm not breathing through my nose. That's
Hmm.
where anxiety kicks in, panic attacks. Um, Obviously, like if you have dental issues, that takes a part of it. Like
So many downstream effects, right?
it really does. So
Yeah.
meditation. I did a session with the monkey. He was teaching me how to breathe and how they breathe and why they breathe, and the things that he was telling me about. You know, like we're humming because our bodies are made out of water, and so we're vibrating, and we're vibrating with Mother Nature, and so the fact that when you're humming and you're vibrating it does something to your brain where you're just like stop thinking, stop thinking, stop thinking, and it's the vibration just kicks in, which is fascinating to me. So I used
It's a
my
rabbit
minute.
hole for sure that you can
Say
go
what now?
down. It's a rabbit hole that you can go down with that sort of into that metaphysical side of things, right?
Do you hear my passion at what I'm talking about this? Because I'm so into this because it was such a holistic thing for me as well. Because I would meditate and I would close my eyes and I'm like, my God, I cannot stop thinking. I'm still thinking of things. And as soon as I caught it, it was more like, holy crap, I felt this vibration in my brain where I'm like, I can see the lights just doing this. Zzz, 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 and I'm like, whoa, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's just like the reaction of the water waves in your body, right? So I use the cold plunge now, and I'm putting two and two together. Like, how can I how can I overdo it because that's what I do, right? I'm trying to overdo this meditation stuff. So I implemented the cold plunge with my meditation. So as soon as I go in my cold plunge, automatically your body's like, "Oh my god, we're dying. What are we doing?"
Yeah.
And that's where the breathing kicks in. That's when you're like, "Okay, we can control this. Let's control our breathing. Let's breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Just relax. You're not dying. Nothing's gonna happen. So let's do what the monk said and let's just breathe." And then all of a sudden you have a sense of relaxation where you just shut your freaking brain and you're just you're just there. You're alive. You're present. You're just like okay. And I believe in God, right? I believe in Jesus, and that's when I can kind of pray because I'm like okay. I can focus and I can pray, and I'm like, I'm gonna be grateful. I'm right here. I am present. God, thank you. And then I get up and I'm like, whoa, I feel so freaking alive. I feel alive. I feel
Hmm.
like I just like went through war with outside and inside and I can survive anything right now and I feel good. I can start my freaking day for sure. No stress, no nothing. I have such a clear like mindset right now. I'll go attack the world. And then I'm like burnt. I'm like I feel that burning sensation like after the cold plunge
Yeah.
where I'm just like, okay, it's hot, yeah, you know. And then I start shivering. I'm like, all right, now I'm cold. Let's go change.
Yeah. No, for sure. Are you doing that? Are you cold plunging like pre-training or another time of the day, or like when do you typically do it?
So usually I cold plunge, essentially like maybe in like an hour or two after my training session,
Hmm.
because I try to let my the muscles kind of go back to their original state, you know, and I feel like I have to my body has to relax from all that craziness to another craziness because for some reason I feel like in my head I'm like I'm a hypochondriac, so I feel like if I shock my heart like on this side and then I shock my heart again on this side, I'm gonna have a heart attack.
That's that bro science just kicks in,
It
and you
does.
just, yeah, just going
It
off
truly does.
intuition.
It
Yeah.
truly does. And I'm just like, wait, is that my chest or is that my heart? Is my arm
Yeah.
going numb? I don't know. So I that's why I wait though, because I'm like I try to stop my brain from overthinking that. So I'm like, oh, I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I wait about an hour or two, and then I go in the cold plunge, and I try to do the cold plunge every morning after my workouts in a way, like obviously an hour. And yeah, and I feel like uh, cold plunging every day is beneficial for stress. If I don't do it every day, I do it every 3 days. Because look, don't get me wrong, it's still scary. If even if I do it every day, it's still scary as hell going in that damn water at a 40-degree temperature. It's I still get scared to this day, and
Oh, for sure.
I've been doing it since 2020. I literally hold on to that tub and I'm like, fuck, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And I'm like, just do it. And then I go, breathe, relax. I'm like, okay, this is why I do it. Like, I feel
Yeah.
freaking good,
Oh yeah, for sure.
you know?
That, yeah, that feeling is awesome. It hooks you for sure, but every time every time you're about to get in, your body's like, no, just can
Please
we do
don't.
it, like, can we do it later, please, not right
Yeah, that's,
now. Especially for me, like I pretty much do it. I've been doing it since I got mine. I've been doing cold showers for a long time, for
yeah,
years. Um, but I finally took the plunge and got a cold plunge, and like early March, I think it was, and I've done it every day since then. Haven't missed a day. And yeah, I usually do it first thing in the morning. So that's always tough because like your body's cold, your brain's still foggy. It's like the last thing you want to do is get in cold water. Like your body's just like, just go back to bed.
oh my
It's
God,
nice, it's warm, it's cozy. Like you deserve some more sleep, like whatever.
yeah.
So and it's just like conquering that first thing of the day, and it's just kind of like taking control of your body, right? And saying like, no, this is what's going to happen. This is what the plan is today, and this is what we're going to do, right?
Yeah,
Um, so I found it so beneficial for that, and that's one of those things. Like it's not really a scientific thing. It's not a physiological thing. It's just doing more of the hard stuff, right? Just like training, structuring your diet. These are all things that are doing the hard thing. It's the short term sacrifice for long term gain. And I think just the more of those things that you can stack in your life and sort of delaying that instant gratification, the better off you'll be, because that's what all success comes from, right? Work hard now, see the benefits later, right? Like that's kind of what it all boils down to. Um, so yeah, for me, the cold plunge has been that for sure. But yeah, like I know what you're saying, like the shivering. I had to cut back a little bit because I was going for too long sometimes in the morning.
how long were you doing it for?
I was doing like 3 to 5 minutes, which is fine which is not like that long of a time, and at like 3 degrees Celsius, whatever that is in Fahrenheit, just kind of just above freezing, right? So as basically as cold as it goes. But the problem was like if I'm not doing something where I move after, then I'm just like I'm trying to like do some writing, or I'm just jumping right onto a work call or something like that. And I'm just like sitting at my desk shivering. Like I can't warm up even though I'm wearing like a couple layers or whatever.
Yeah,
If I'm just like doing it, then I'm just like gonna go out and run errands and stuff, no problem. Like you just warm up through movement, right? So I found it to not be that beneficial if I'm going in and doing some type of cognitive work right after, just because it takes forever to warm up, and it's more distracting than anything. Just like shivering, I'm just trying to like do sets of like push-ups like every few minutes, just like to kind of warm up, right?
yeah.
So typically I do usually 2 to 3 minutes like regularly, and I find that to be pretty good as long as I'm doing some like doing something cognitive after, right? Especially here in Edmonton, like it's like minus 30 outside, right? So it's hard to
Cold on
warm
top
up.
of cold.
Yeah, exactly. If it's like summer and whatever, and I can go outside and mow the lawn or do some yard work after, like it's great. It's you warm up, no problem, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but that's been a big one, and one for me too. Like you mentioned, I kind of wanted to go back to that is the breathing. That's been a big game changer for me. It was funny that you said that with the facial structure and whatnot, because my wife was like, my wife, she's like the only person I know that still uses Snapchat. She's the only person that like sends me snaps, and she always like sends me like embarrassing photos because we've been together for super long. We've been together for like 11, 12 years now. Um, so she'll send me stuff like when we were like in our early 20s and whatnot, and just like goofy pictures of me and whatever. I'm just like looking back, I'm like, man, like my face is different. Like my cheekbones, my jaw is like, it's different back then before I started really consciously breathing and working on some of that breath work. Cause growing up, like I always had really bad allergies in the summer.
Hmm.
So my nose was just always plugged like all summer long. Um, I tended to get like a lot of colds and like nasal, like sinus infections and stuff in the winter. Like my sinuses were always giving me issues growing up. So I always kind of had fairly limited nasal breathing. So that caused me to breathe more through my mouth whenever I was just clogged like that. So over time, like that really takes a toll, and nobody tells you about that. It's just something you have to kind of figure out on your own, right? So after reading that book, I was like, damn, this is crazy. I'm going to try and fix this, right? So I ended up getting what's it called? I always forget the name of the surgery, the deviated septum surgery,
Oh yeah, yeah.
to kind of clear out some of my sinuses a little bit, because they were just so clogged up. There was just so much extra tissue in there. Um, so they cleaned it out a little bit, and that made somewhat of a difference, but it didn't fully fix it like I thought it would. So I'm like, man, I need to start breathing through my nose. And I remember reading in that book, he was talking about, it might not seem like it, but just it's sort of like it's almost like a muscle. Like the more you train it, like the more you breathe through your nose, the more it'll open up over time. Because it's like your body's like, oh, there's air coming through here again. Let's make some room here, right? And over time, it will sort of fix itself. So I started doing the mouth taping before sleep. I don't know
Mm.
if you've done that.
Too scary to me.
Yeah, it's freaky for sure.
Yeah.
But I started doing that like actually kind of around pandemic time as well, in 2020, and started with just like a little square of tape just on the center of my lips. So
Okay.
if I was feeling kind of like claustrophobic or whatnot, I could still kind of like breathe through like the side of my mouth,
Right, right.
if I needed to. So if I was feeling kind of like freaked out about it or whatever, I could still, if I really wanted to, I could consciously breathe through my mouth. But it was just about like keeping my lips kind of together and just encouraging some of that nasal breathing. And over time, it just like after a few months, like I just got totally used to it. And now I just tape my whole mouth shut completely and no problem. And it made a huge difference for my nasal breathing, just totally opened up my sinuses, made such a huge difference. And I've literally seen like a difference in my face just from like 5 years ago. It's crazy.
That's insane, man. And look, to me, it was more about anxiety than anything else. Like I have super high anxiety. I would have panic attacks, especially like after 2020. Like, and it wasn't like the pandemic. It was just like living just a life of fatherhood, right? With the kids
Oh, it's
screaming.
everything. It's all cumulative. Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah.
And I was trying my hardest, like, okay, how can I control my anxiety? Breathe, even in traffic. I used to get crazy road rage, like not enough to like go and fight somebody, but enough to like just cuss, and it still gets me like later on in life, like, oh, I cannot believe that guy, blah blah blah. It's now I'm like
Which
somebody
is scary in Florida when a lot of people have guns.
exactly, man. And look, I've done my fair share of like road rage stuff, but now I'm like, I have kids, I'm a family man, I can't go to jail. Like that's silly. I was like, so now I breathe, and somebody cuts me off, I'm like, oh well, cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty zen with traffic stuff now too. It's actually my wife who's the crazy person in our household, and she's like just a small like 5 foot nothing chick, like never been involved in a physical confrontation. I'm like, what are you going to do? What if that person gets out of the car? What's going to
That's
happen?
you. It's gonna put it back on you. You better
Yeah.
defend her.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. And then the guy gets out of the car. I'm like, oh shit. Now I gotta get out of the car, right?
It's
Now
I
this
don't
is
know if
my
you
problem.
ever watched the uh Key and Peele,
Yep, for sure.
and it's like when he's talking about, or is it Megan? I think Megan, and then his the boyfriend's name is Sebastian, which is the other dude, and he's like, he called me a bitch. He's like, no, you called him Megan, or whatever it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. That's how it is. That's funny. But that's yeah, oh for sure the stress and anxiety like that's a big one too that breathing really helps with, cuz like you said a lot of it has to do with that shallow mouth breathing versus like those deep belly breaths where you're
Hmm.
expanding your diaphragm. It has a big effect on your central nervous system and activating that parasympathetic response and putting you into a state of relaxation. It's crazy, man. Breath work is good. Like I try and do some of it. I don't really do like your typical meditation, whatever, but I do some breath work and whatnot. I've been doing I don't know if you've tried the NSDR stuff, the non-sleep deep rest sessions.
No, I haven't.
Um, yeah, so it comes from like some kind of yoga practice, yoga nidra practice, and they've done some studies on it. And Andrew Huberman, I don't know if you listen to any of his stuff.
I do.
Yeah, so he's been a big proponent of NSDR, and it's basically kind of like a 10 to 20 minute relaxation type of meditation with some breath work, where it just kind of take away all that kind of external stimulus and do some breathing, and it puts you into a state of deep rest, and it kind of like replaces taking like a longer nap or something like that, and lets you get a lot of rest in a short period of time. So it's a bit
Hmm.
of a hack like that, and I found that to be really good. Sometimes at the end of the day, when I've had a lot of calls, been running around like crazy, I just feel totally overstimulated and burnt out. Um, and then I know like I have to go and do family stuff or whatever, but I'm kind of like irritable and stuff like that because of just I'm just kind of burnt out from the day and overstimulated. So just doing like a 10-minute session of that has been huge for me, and it affects my sleep too. Helps me sleep better and relax better later on in the night. Um, yeah, that's a big one for sure.
I'm definitely gonna try that. Anything for sleep, I'll try because I have insomnia, and I get it. It flares up every now and then, and by flaring up, I mean like it happens just randomly where I'm just like, damn it, I can't sleep again, and then I try to go to sleep, and then the next day I'm like extremely tired. I end up going to sleep, and then the following day after that happens again.
Hmm.
But this is like these are the days that I don't do the cold plunge, or I'm not breathing correctly, and everything synergistically just work together. So if I don't do that together, like I can almost know for a fact that I'm gonna have a shitty night.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like I was a bad sleeper before I had a kid. Like sleep was always a struggle for me, just turning my brain off at night.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
I've always been jealous of people that are just like, yeah, just their head hits the pillow and they just pass out and get
me
their eight
too.
hours in. Like it's just autopilot, right?
My wife is that she literally puts her head on it, and she's snoring, and I'm like, how
Yeah,
is that possible?
that's my wife too.
Like
Yeah,
how are you not like just thinking about life, and how are you
yeah,
just sleeping?
I know. That was my wife too. Like we were joking about it the other day actually, especially like before having a kid, how much she used to sleep. She used to sleep like 10 to 12 hours a day, like no problem.
Jeez.
Like she would just like we'd be watching TV, just hanging out in the evening. She'd pass out for like take like a 2 hour nap in the middle of our movie or whatever we're watching, and then she'd go to bed, and just like sleep the next day, sleep all through the night, just wake
I'm
up
jealous.
well rested. Like it's crazy.
Oh, I feel
Um,
so good.
yeah, I know. But you know what? Honestly, it's a blessing and a curse, I think. When you have a mind that's always thinking and being creative and overthinking things, like that has its advantages in life and business and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
So it's somewhat of a trade off, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's awesome. So why don't we get into, I just kind of mentioned business. So like I'm interested to hear kind of the story of Bashmouth and kind of how that got started, why you wanted to get into that, kind of some of that early process and what that's been like.
Yeah, man. So Bashmouth, Bashmouth has been a journey. I'll tell you that. From look at that,
Shout
look at
out.
that plug, man.
Shout out.
It's been quite a journey, man. From creating the name, trademarking it, lawyers, like the entire thing has just been like, man, like there before the gum, there it was going to be something different. Same concept, same stuff, but it was something different. And the reason why I started this is because, as you know, you and I worked at a company before, and they just that industry, the nutraceutical industry, is known to just like recycle people, or the turnover was just like so bad. And
Hmm.
by the fourth quarter, which is holiday season, they like to let go of people.
Yep.
And I've been in the nutraceutical world for about, I want to say 16, yeah, 16, 17 years around. Um, and every year I get scared because I'm just like, "Oh, shit, are they gonna let me go? Are they gonna get somebody cheaper?"
Especially in like sales and marketing roles. I saw the same thing, and that's why I got out of it, because it was just so it was such a fun industry but so volatile.
Absolutely, man. And and I was just tired of it. And I was tired of making them millions of dollars, and I told myself, why can't I do that for myself? Like why can't I? So I started I started this brand, and it went from there. And it was a blessing, and I cried a lot, honestly, and I'm gonna be very frank. And I it's my entire savings, and I feel like I have a lot to overcome, but I'm learning in the process. And uh, but yeah, anyways, so Bashmouth, it's a very different niche. The market for caffeine use is overused, especially with like energy cans. Um, and I feel like this is so different that it can be the next Red Bull type of thing. It's I made sure that this thing was like not just for the pretty people. Like for instance, like Bang. If you notice,
Yep.
Bang energy drinks, you put half naked girls, and people are like, "Oh, half naked girls, that's awesome."
Yeah.
And
It's
the
marketing gimmicky kind of stuff, right?
exactly. And so it gives that sense of like, I'm not good enough to drink that because I'm not hot, right? And that's a lot of energy drinks out there, or energy anything. Um, even Red Bull, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, I'm not an extreme sports athlete, I can't drink that. Bashmouth has a mission statement where it says, "We all bleed the same, so why not share the same energy?" And what I mean by that is, we're we we're all the same. You don't have to be sexy. You don't have to be an athlete. You can just be you doing you. Like for instance, this podcast, right? You're talking, you you're interviewing people. Your brain is going all over the place. Chew a gum, you have freshness. The spearmint, what it does, it helps with anxiety. It also helps if you have a stomach ache. The liquid center has 130 milligrams of pure natural caffeine, and it's natural, vegan friendly, gluten free, dye free, and it's essentially a sublingual. I shouldn't legally say that, but it's a sublingual. It goes into the bloodstream around your mouth, and you'll feel it right away. And so I made it to where people can just consume this and be okay with it, and not have a crash or anything like that. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it feels like a really nice kind of slot in the market in terms of caffeine consumption. Like I've definitely found it to be super useful, because like I love coffee. I like
mhm,
drinking coffee, and I think there's a time and a place for all kinds of different caffeine
a
sources.
100%. Yep.
So it's not like you're trying to say like, oh, you only need to chew gum now and you don't need coffee anymore. No, that's not what it is. It's just for a different time of the day, right? Like I still like
Absolutely.
to enjoy a cup of coffee, right? Or like, for example, like if I'm training super early, I'm just going to take a caffeine pill. If I have to be, training within 30 minutes of waking up, I'm just going to wake up, take a pill, take my pre-workout, down some water and go sort of thing. Right. So for me, I'm sure everybody's different, right? But for me, where the gum has kind of come in is when I'm running errands and I'm kind of out and about. That's a good one for me, just where I can just have that gum. I don't have to worry about, sipping on a hot coffee, getting in and out of the car, and then I'm like holding this coffee cup while I'm trying to like do stuff. So much easier to just throw some gum in and kind of go about my day running around. Um, I found that to be really good. And then also sort of, at work when I go into the office, because mostly I work remotely for my corporate job, work remotely from home. But when I have to go in, it's there's no good coffee anywhere at my office. There's like it's because it's a publicly funded corporation, so it's not private. So it's there's no fancy coffee machines and all that kind of stuff. It's like some shitty Keurig in the kitchen, and I don't even have Keurig pods. I'm not going to remember to ever bring them. So there's
Yeah.
no caffeine source, and then kind of the downtown Edmonton area, especially since the pandemic, has been pretty hard just because people aren't downtown working anymore, right? So a lot of the coffee shops around kind of closed down. So
Oh,
I
that's
think the closest one is like a 10-minute walk sometimes, which if it's a nice sunny day, okay, whatever, that's fine. But it's minus 30 outside. I'm not going to go walk, spend half my lunch hour just walking to get a cup of coffee, right?
yeah.
So I found that to be really good. Like after lunch, not only is it sort of freshening your breath when you're dealing, talking to coworkers and whatnot, but it also gives you that caffeine source for that, to kind of beat that afternoon slump kind of thing. Right. So I found it to be super useful in my day. So I think it's a really good product.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And here's the only obstacle with this gum. Um, there's a since it's a natural source of caffeine. There's a little bit of bitterness as soon as you chew in it. Um, you have to surpass that. It takes within 5 seconds to dissipate. So the transitional flavor to from I shouldn't say sour to sweet, but from bitter to sweet.
Yeah.
It literally takes 5 seconds. Digests whatever liquid comes out, and then it's like long lasting, juicy gum.
Yeah.
Like for instance, like if you ever, I actually encourage you go get a different kind of gum, five stride, whatever gums out there. Time it, time how long the flavor lasts, and I'll guarantee it's not gonna pass Bashmouth at all.
Yeah. I've
Like
noticed that it does last super long. It almost it outlasts when I'm just like I don't even feel like chewing anymore. Like it's
yeah,
just like and it's
yep.
still got flavor.
I do the same thing where I'm just like
Yeah.
I'm tired of freaking chewing and I spit it out.
Yeah. Yeah, the flavor lasts longer, which is super nice. And it's a bigger piece of gum too, so it's I enjoy chewing it. It's almost like a bit
Thank
of
you, man.
a jaw workout at the same time, which is kind of a problem actually in society. People eat too many soft foods where it's like we're not even using our jaws like we should be. So I know there's people that do kind of like jaw training and stuff like that, and they chew kind of different like flavorless gums just to get that sort of like extra thing in
That's insane. Yeah.
for jaw health. So even that kind of like just like a random tangent aspect of it, I like that. But yeah, no, it's a really good
Thank you, man.
product. Super happy for you that you launched this. I think it's awesome.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And yeah, it's been quite a journey. We're in a lot of retailers in the States. We have our partner in Canada. And yeah, man, I'm just excited to see where it takes us. And I'm working literally. They say everybody says when you're working for yourself, um, it's a job that's a 24-hour job, and it is.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like that because it's yours.
Hmm.
Um, and I like the process. I mean, look, I go up and down with emotions. Like I'm like down here, and then I go up here, and then I go down, up, and it's quite a journey. And like obviously, I love the process, but at the same time, I'm like, all right, I'm impatient a little bit. Like, what's taking so long with XYZ? And come on, hurry up.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think too, like with anything, starting anything new, it's not a linear curve, right? It's sometimes nothing happens for a really long time and then it all happens overnight, right?
Yeah.
I think that's just how it is with a lot of things. Anytime you're starting something new, whether it's just creating content or starting a business, like we talked about training. Sometimes like you're training for months and months. Especially I've noticed like with body weight training type stuff when you're trying to learn a new move like whatever it is like a handstand or any kind of a gymnastics movement. Sometimes like those a lot of that kind of training can be super frustrating because with weights and stuff like that, you can always add like 2.5 pounds to the bar and whatever, and kind of it's a little bit easier to kind of gauge that progress.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of like the gymnastic strength and calisthenics training, sometimes like things just don't happen. It just seems like you're not making any progress for months and months and months, and then one day your body's just like, "Yep, unlocked. There it is. You got the movement." It's like, "Holy shit, this is awesome."
That's
Like I
it.
remember doing like my first. I was working on getting the muscle up on the rings for a long time. I was working on it for like a year pretty much, and then just one day just happened. I just
Just
got
clicked.
it, and it was like, oh man, that's such a good feeling. So
I hope everyone
yeah,
thinks like I hope anybody listening like a muscle up is extremely hard. It's you're literally pulling yourself up and then doing a dip.
yeah,
That's hard to do from the very bottom to the very top. I
hmm
still can't do that.
hmm
And I
especially if
feel
you're not using momentum and you're doing like on the rings, it's just strict strength. There's no real momentum
oh my
involved,
god,
right?
yeah. Like I can't it's not that I never tried because I have. I just that's hard.
Yeah, for sure.
It's hard.
Yeah, and I like that's why I like doing those kind of gymnastics type stuff because it does take a long time, but like there's just something about moving your own body through space
Mhm.
versus moving an external weight or something like that that feels a little bit different. Um, and it's such a good feeling when you kind of like unlock this thing that you're able to do with your body, and it's cool because you can do it anywhere, which is fun too, right?
Yeah.
Like you kind of like walking around, it's like nobody here knows I can squat 400 pounds, but I fucking can, just like, you know, whatever. But, when you're just like, you can just pop into a handstand, whatever, or just do a muscle up on a random bar at the park or a tree branch. Like, it just feels good that you can just do it anywhere. You can just practice it anywhere, just like kind of a part of your life.
You're just an athletic human being. You're just like, wow, that dude can fight zombies really quick right now.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
then I also like how there seems to be a lot of carryover to other aspects of fitness, where I found the inverse not to be the same. Like if you, for example, like I remember reading back on T Nation back in the day. Kind of, I heard about this for the first time with like the carryover of gymnastic strengths to other movements, where this gymnastics coach was talking about how he had some like 120-pound gymnast, just super strong, flying through the air, whatnot, and could do a full planche and put planche push-ups and all that, and then just walked into a weight room and never having touched a barbell before, just rep out 2 or 3 plates like no problem. And everyone was like, "Wow, that's crazy." But then those guys who can do that, like they can lift that, but there's no chance in hell they're doing a planche push up. Like it doesn't go the other way.
Yeah.
So I found that kind of interesting with gymnastics. It carries over to a lot more stuff.
Absolutely. I agree with that too. Plus they have like different like I'm the when I did train people and when I do train people, I tell them I educate them on muscle groups and I tell them exactly what muscle group does what. But with gymnasts, right, they use different fibers that not even these bodybuilders have because they
Yeah,
use like these micro muscles that are so deep in there.
that are just the stabilization muscles that you can't even see.
Yeah,
That are just kind
exactly.
of the connectors between a lot of different muscle groups, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And look, it's I train like a bodybuilder, but sometimes it's just like, damn, how do I activate those tiny ones, where the ones that nobody sees, but they're all functional and
Yeah.
good for longevity. Like I have a hard time with my flexibility, and I know
Oh, me too.
flexibility. Yep, flexibility is extremely important for as the older you get, the more you need it. because when you do get older and you break a hip or you break a knee, how are you gonna recover?
Yep.
You know?
That's been, I've definitely kind of like started to make a shift from trying to lift as heavy as possible, to just more mobility, taking the muscle through a bigger range of motion. Sort of like doing more of like the ATG style stuff. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've seen that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
but doing a little bit more of that, just a little bit more focused on just like longevity and joint health and whatnot. I tweaked my back the other day squatting, and I was going to physio for a little bit. And my physiotherapist is just like roasting me for like how shitty my mobility is. And I'm like, man, this is a bit of a wake up call here. Especially if you're just like, you're working a desk job, you're sitting in a chair a lot of the time,
For sure.
like your hips and your hamstrings, they just get so tight, man. And it just has this trickle down effect where you end up tweaking your back and whatnot. And it's just because you're just so immobile, and your body is just hits the panic switch if the load gets too big, sort of thing, because it knows that you can't handle that kind of stuff because you're just so stiff and weak in certain parts around your hips and your core, right?
That's definitely my weakest point is mobility and flexibility and things that have to do with
But it sucks, man.
I
Stretching
know
sucks.
it's
It's
the
so not
worst.
fun.
It's
So
the
not
worst. Like
fun.
I've done it like a handful of times, and every time I'm sweating profusely,
Yeah.
and I feel like I can't breathe, and I'm like, man, you know what? Fuck this. Like I'm not doing this.
I'm gonna go get a pump. I'm gonna go get a pump.
I'm gonna go lift heavier weight now.
Yeah, no, but hey man, like that's for some people, like that's what lifting is. They don't
Yeah,
like to do it. They don't, they know it's good for them, and they know they should be doing some kind of resistance training, but they just don't like going to the gym. They don't like the feeling of, the burn and whatnot. So everybody has their challenges. It's about doing the work that needs to be done, even though maybe you don't enjoy it in the moment, but it's just delaying that instant gratification because there's going to be a benefit from it.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For
Oh,
sure.
so back to business. So how are you kind of balancing, um, you know, doing Bashmouth with sort of with Hostile, and kind of how did you get involved with Hostile? Obviously, both you and I kind of know Summer and Fuad. So how did you kind of get involved with them? Curious about that.
So obviously we've been friends for a while. Um, as soon as I launched Bashmouth, um, it almost seems like, oh my god, it finally happens, right? Um, and I posted that on LinkedIn and social media and things like that. Now this is like a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Fuad actually called me and he goes, Giddy, I have something you want, and you have something that I need. I'm like, okay. Automatically, I'm like, okay. I have now people that are believing me. Maybe he wants to invest. I don't know. I'm thinking optimistically, and like whatever happens, happens. And so, I'm hearing him out, and he goes, I want you to work for me, and I can advertise for Bashmouth. I'm like, okay, it's a win-win. Um, he's like, look, you're gonna call stores anyways for Bashmouth, so why not just do that with Hostile? Touche, okay.
Yeah, fair
Um,
enough.
we're still talking. We're still spitballing, and one thing led to another. I got my wife involved because my wife is essentially our operational managers for Bashmouth, and she takes care of like financial stuff, and so she's like, okay, well, with my role, right? Um, I've always been like in the executive level because I was vice president, director of whatever, and so financially for my job I need to get paid a little bit what executives do, and so because Fuad and Summer are friends, I had to kind of like take like a cutback, but in the long run, it's like they're advertising, so it kind of everything leveled up.
Yeah.
So this was like a no brainer. It was like I'm gonna be working with my friends, and they're gonna be helping me, and it's a win win. So that's how it all got started. And the way that I balance is like Um, right? It's like priorities, like who's gonna come first. Um, I tend to, and my wife gets on me about this, and I'm sorry that I'm saying this out loud. But I tend to hostel a little bit more right now, just because I'm trying to get them get them to be in a good placement because they're known now, right? And then Bashmouth comes a little bit later, and so I kind of have to have like that. I'm gonna plant the seed in a little bit. Like I'm gonna establish hostile and then introduce Bashmouth in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's how I'm able to kind of like, you know,
Balance the two.
balance both of them. Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I mean, it's good too. Like, you know, you're also able to work for, like you said, friends, and also a supplement company that you can trust and that you know is actually a good product. Because, shout out Summer and Fuad, like they're good people, honest people that actually make really good products. And both you and I working in the fitness and supplement industry, we know there's a lot of shady, greasy people out there that are doing not
absolutely.
good things. And it's hard to find good people in that industry. To be honest, like I've come across some of the best people and some of the worst people. It's like a crazy, huge spectrum I found. So it's
Oh
good that
man,
you get to work for good people at least, right?
they're honest. Honestly, they're freaking amazing people, man. Like they look out for their own, and they look out for them, and they take care of them, and they do. Look, long story short, Summer worked for Muscle Tech, and I remember we were hanging out in one convention, and we started talking about our careers and stuff like that. And she was like, "Do you remember that pre workout called Nano Vapor?" And I'm like, "That was literally my favorite pre workout ever." She's like, "I created that," and I was like, "That's so sick."
Yeah,
Ever since then,
I knew that. Yeah.
I was just like, "Damn!" Like she has such a brain about product development and why it does that and things like that. And that's my background too, right? So I'm like we're both like spitting balls at each other with this knowledge and the fact that she did that, and I'm like, oh my god, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, she's an OG in the
yeah,
supplement game for sure.
it's so funny. Like back in this happened in 2020. Um, when she was starting this business, right? She didn't even tell me like she was starting it. I just told her, I was like, Summer, you and Fuad should open something up. Like, you have the knowledge, he's got the thing. And she was like, yeah, yeah, knowingly that they have already started and
It was
things
still
like,
on the down low.
yeah. And I was still on the
Yeah.
download, and I helped them in the beginning as well. Like, like as far as like the sales aspect on what you should look out for, what you should, whatever, all the XYZ type of thing. And so I was there from the very beginning too, and we made it officially like a year and a half later where we were working officially together. And yeah, man, they're just I can't say anything negative about them. Like they're just good people, and they just want to be successful and like everybody else, but they want to get rid of like the bad fat around in our industry, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Which there's a lot of. Yeah.
A lot, man, a lot. And so yeah, good people.
Yeah, for sure.
Good people.
Yeah, Summer was she was great to work for sure.
Mhm.
It was a bummer when that opportunity ended, but had a great time working for her. So I'll always, whatever she's got going on, always happy to support and give her a shout out. Because yeah, the industry it's pretty sketchy, and the average person doesn't really know. But like having I worked at GNC too, right, back in the day. Worked for Muscle Tech and some other companies as well. So the stuff you learn like working on the inside of the industry, it's pretty eye opening. And you kind of take for granted some of that stuff that and you don't realize that most people would have no idea
No
about
idea.
some of this stuff, right? And some of the stuff, working on the inside of like a really big, company, that's just like, damn, like we're doing that. That's kind of sketchy, man. So
Yep.
yeah, so yeah, you really have, it's really important these days, especially when pretty much, you have people starting supplement companies mixing stuff in their bathtubs at home. It's really important that you know the people that are creating it have some level of integrity. Super important. So yeah, shout out and hostile.
Yeah, shout out to them for sure, man. Because good supplement line, good people, good staff. Everybody does their thing, man. And yeah, I can't say anything else, man. But
Yeah.
they're definitely gonna make it. They're gonna make it. They're gonna be on top of the world pretty soon.
Yep. I have no doubt. So yeah, I mean that's a lot going on, like business wise. I was kind of curious also, just kind of in general about fatherhood and how that kind of all plays in, and how you're doing balancing all that. Just because I know for me it's been just a crazy shock going from not being a dad to kind of the first one, and just seeing the transformation and how much life changes. Because I mean, people tell you that shit all the time, right? Like, oh, it's never going to be the same and whatever. But it's like you don't really know until you're in it, right? When you're in the trenches, changing diapers at whatever 2 o'clock in the morning, haven't slept, just like the craziness of it, right? Um, yeah, so I know I went through a lot of changes going from zero to one, having a kid. So just kind of curious, for you, like if there's any big differences you noticed sort of going from one to two kids, because I know I've gone the 0 to 1, but like I've had a couple people mention like 1 to 2 is like another level that you kind of have to hit. So just kind of curious, like is any big changes there? Any advice that you have?
Oh my God. So fatherhood, right? It's a job. Parenting is a job, and it's the best job ever. It's the hardest and the best at the same time. It's been a roller coaster because we're all learning, and we can't just take. We have to take everybody's things for with a grain of salt. Like our parenting is not going to be the same as our parents,
Oh, for sure.
right? And like there's also the parenting where you got to break the cycle of what you went through if you had any trauma. And so you have to kind of like think about like, okay, I'm not going to do that. So how do I do that better? Um, so becoming a father, right? You mentioned, excuse me, you mentioned like that the changes, whatever. I honestly didn't notice the change. I don't even know. The thing is, I don't even know what life was before kids. Like I truly I cannot remember what it was like to be like.
What the hell was I doing with all that free time? Like, what
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 was
was
I
going
doing?
on?
I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I do remember like going on dates and stuff like that. But I I don't know. Like it's just I
Seems
can't.
like a different lifetime, I guess, right?
Yeah. And the thing is like fuck man. I love these girls to death. Like I would literally go to jail for them. If they murdered somebody, that it was me.
Yeah,
I
for
did that.
sure.
But going from 1 to 2, uh, big change, right? It's you have to kind of like shift your mindset of like I remember. Let me go back because I know I'm going all over the place right now. I was terrified of not having 2 kids, but I was terrified of not being able to love them the same.
Hmm.
That was my biggest fear. Was am I gonna love her more than her? And if so, like what's gonna happen? And I would have conversations like that with either my wife or my mom. And my mom, I have 3 brothers. I have 2 brothers, an older and the little one, and I'm in the middle. And I would ask her like, how do you like love? How do you love multiple children? She's like, you just do. You just love them differently, but you love
Yeah.
them. And so I still couldn't get that in my head. I'm like, how am I gonna be able to love my second one? Is she gonna feel neglected, like because she's the smaller one or the middle one? Because I'm the middle child, and I don't know if you know anything about middle children. We
Oh, me
get
too.
left out.
I'm a middle child too.
Oh, are
I
you
got a
really?
yeah, I got a younger brother and older brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So we get left out, and it sucks. And so you naturally are very aware of like, okay, I'm gonna pay more attention to this person because I don't want that. I don't want them to think that. So that
Yeah.
was my biggest concern is like, am I gonna be able to pay more attention to her? Is she gonna love me? Like, I don't know. So they were right. I love them both differently. It's just so different, man. It's a lot because it's the screams, it's the fighting, it's remember I have a 4 and a 7 year old, so they're in a world where they're not agreeing or they're fighting or they're playing or something, but there's always a lot of noise and
Chaos.
chaos. But I don't know how else to live without it. It's like I need it, but I've learned how to cope with it too. I learned how to like, okay, they're stressing me out. Let me do the plunge.
Yeah.
Or let me go work out or something like that where I can come back and be present with them because that's more important to me than anything else is how do I live in the moment with them. And so living with two kids, it is chaos, but it's fun. Like it's fun to go to Disney and live things through their eyes,
Yeah.
or going to the zoo, or going to all these things where you're just like, this is so dumb. Like for instance, right? We went. I don't know if you know anything about this show called Bluey.
I just kind of heard of it, but never really
It's
watched
pretty.
it yet.
It's pretty amazing. It's a show about a family of four. It's exactly like my thing. Is the parents and two little girls. Uh, and then it has like it's a realistic aspect of life of getting kicked in the balls, right? Like by your little kids. Like they have this thing in the show, but it plays through the whole entire thing of how he got kicked in the balls and things like that. But anyways, we went to go see this live show with Bluey, and my wife and I we were both like looking at each other and looking at them, and we were like both so emotional. Like it was so weird on on how we were feeling because we're like, wow, we never got this, but we're giving it to them,
Hmm.
and they look so happy, and they're both like so drawn to this thing that we're just like, oh, man, I love being a parent. Like I love seeing that. I love their reaction. I love living through their eyes. I love that they can maybe remember this moment and seeing like I have my parents here watching this cool show. You know,
Awesome.
so living with them, man, it's chaos, but it's a wonderful chaos.
Yeah. Oh, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, like it's one of those things where it's like it's so hard, but it's also so rewarding at the same time, right?
100%,
Yeah. And I
100%.
I found like it's almost just this like crazy um limitless source of motivation now that I have, right? It's like
Yeah,
you just look at them and you be like, yeah, I should do more, should work harder because like I want to give them the best, you know?
that's
And
why we did Bashmouth. I want to leave a
yeah,
legacy for them, and I do everything for them, and it's not me, and nothing is about me anymore.
yeah,
Like we talked about food earlier, they steal my food every freaking day. I buy something specifically for me, it's gone the next day,
yeah,
and I get a little bit ticked off, but I'm like, literally, this is my thought process. Fuck, man, that's my food, and now I'm hungry. Like, blah, blah, blah. At least they ate, they're fed, they're good. All right, whatever, I can go get more. Literally, my
yeah,
mind shifts just like that.
yeah,
So,
yeah. That's so true. And I found like for me too, like I was really like, because you kind of see it a lot, you know, when people become parents, like they just let themselves kind of, you know, really fall off.
hmm
Just like they, you know, don't not as active, don't work out as much. They kind of don't care about their diet as much anymore. You know, the dad bod, right? Like that's where it came from because dads just don't like take care of themselves as much anymore and just end up getting a big gut, right?
yeah,
But I found for me it was like I was like, okay, I don't want that to happen to me. So I know I have like hardly any free time now. So let me just figure out a way to be more efficient with the time that I do have, right?
hmm
And I feel like I feel like I had to kind of figure out a bunch of that stuff and figure out how to restructure my life. But I think it's so important for new dads to go through that and to figure that out. Like you have to make changes to yourself. You can't just keep doing the same things that you were doing, right? Because there was times where I was like, I don't feel like going to the gym in the morning first thing. I'm just going to train later. I'll train on my lunch or whenever. But now it's like if I don't get it in, it's not happening,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I have to do that. So you have to be more disciplined. You have to find ways to be more efficient, like cutting things out, like watching just mindless TV. Like I don't do that anymore. I don't have time to keep up with shows, and I don't even really care anymore, to be honest. Like there's just so many more important things in life to worry about. And it's just like you have to cut some stuff out. It's just going to happen because you just don't have that kind of free time, and you don't have time to make mistakes, sort of things. You have to be a little bit more optimal, and I think that's also just my personality. Like I'm very much like a procrastinator and work better under pressure kind of person. So it's now like I feel like I'm always under pressure because I always don't have time. It's like,
Yeah.
like when you have a project at work or something like that, you're like, oh, whatever, you're kind of, chipping away at it. But then when it's like due tomorrow, you're like, okay, laser focus and it's done. Right. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of feel like I'm like that all the time with my training and nutrition now. I'm just like so much more focused because I know if I don't do it, it's not going to happen. Right. It's like the deadline is always today, right now. So
That
yeah.
was the same exact thing with me. Like actually, my wife was always saying like, "You're always going to the gym," and she was always complaining about that. And she's like, "You need to be with us." And I'm like, "You're right." So I made it a sacrifice to uh, take away a little bit of my sleep to train in the morning.
Hmm.
Everyone's asleep. Like I'm here as soon as they wake up. I do my morning routine. I take them to school. Like we scheduled it where I can take them to school and then she picks them up.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I have meetings during the day, during their pickup, and then my wife has meetings in the morning. So it just worked out. Uh, but yeah, man, you got to sacrifice your time in order. If you want that, you'll make time for it. It's just like everything else. Like if you have friends or family and they're not connected, if they want to be connected, they'll be connected
Yep.
in any way possible. So if you want to go in the gym and you want to have that Thor body, you know what to do. Like you have
Yep.
time. You
Yep.
everybody has time. You have 1 hour.
It's priorities. That's
Yeah.
what it comes down to,
So
right?
guess what? I'm sacrificing my sleep. I'll wake up at 5 to go do it. Yeah, it sucks. It always sucks. But
Hmm.
as soon as you get going, you get going. You're just like, oh, I'm so glad I came. I'm so glad that I'm done with it. I'm not
Yeah.
thinking about it. I'm gonna go shower. I'm gonna go take the kids breakfast. Start your day.
Yep. You never regret it after it's done, right?
Mm-mm.
And that's how you know, that's a good thing, whether it's the cold plunge or training or like getting a head start on a project at work. It always sucks. You always don't want to do it, but you feel great after. And that's like the more of those things you can stack in your life, that's how you know you're winning for sure.
100%, man. I agree. 100%.
And with the sleep too, that's the thing. It's like I tweeted about that the other day, where it's like getting up is not the hard part. The hard part is going to bed early, like
That is
just
that's a good
turning
one.
your damn phone off, like deciding not to watch Netflix, because like your body at that point, your brain is fried. You just want to like doom scroll or just like put on some, watch some sports or whatever, just kind of relax.
Mhm.
But it's like nothing is as relaxing as if you just go to bed and you just get an extra hour of sleep so that you can get up and be more productive the next day.
That's so
Um,
hard to do, and you're right. It is hard.
yeah, because like your kids go to bed, you want that little bit of free time,
That's
that
it.
peace and quiet, right?
Mhm.
It's glorious, but you're not doing yourself any favors at all by doing that kind of thing. Like I heard somebody say nothing important happens after 10 o'clock, after 10 p.m. Like there's nothing going on that you need to stay on top of. There's no show that you really need to see. Like
See, so I'm
just
gonna
go to
I'm
bed.
gonna I'm gonna have to like disagree on that one because I mean important things can happen with you and your wife at that time.
Yeah, the time together that you're spending together for sure. Like I know like my situation is a little bit different because like we're still co-sleeping. So like my wife is in bed
Oh,
with the baby at that time. So I'm just like on my own out here.
oh,
It's not
yeah, yeah,
like we
okay.
can like spend time together. And eventually when she's kind of like sleeping in her crib on her own a little bit better, like that'll be our time to kind of hang out, we can maybe go for a walk. We can watch our show together, like spend more time, more quality time together. That's
Yeah.
obviously super important. So for me now, that's not really the case. I just get like a little bit of free time, and I'm just like scrolling on my phone or whatever, and I should know okay, I should just go to bed and just get up
Yeah, yeah.
early.
See, we have that same conversation, my wife and I, about that. Like, our only time available is at nighttime
Yeah,
to just be together. And so, even if it's a conversation or if we're uh, sexually active with each other or whatever it is, like, it's always at nighttime, unfortunately. And we're trying to make it a priority where we can once a week, like in the middle of the day, go have lunch date, because life just hits us, right? We're in a season of life where we're just, the kids are a lot, so we're picking them up or school, whatever, anything that involves them, it's always them. And so
yeah,
we take the back seat, which is shouldn't be that. It should, her and I are the foundation. We should be first, but we're in the season of life where that's happening. So we have to make it a priority where we have to like go on a date once a week, and then at nighttime, if we're able to, just hang out with each other.
yeah,
If that's like watching a show, let's just watch a little bit of it and then turn it off and then cuddle and
yeah.
whatever.
Make that time for yourselves for sure. No, that's super important, and we'll get to that point eventually. But we're still
Oh
in
yeah,
that kind of that first year. Well,
yeah,
she
that's tough.
just turned one, but like that first year is just chaos where we're
That's
just
tough too.
like it's all hands on deck for
Yeah.
that for the kid.
Oh my God, yeah. Especially with the bottle feeding it late at night, or just, oh, man, I remember those times. They were great, but they were all awful at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like I'm definitely looking forward to kind of that next stage where she's a little bit older, a little bit more independent. We can do more things together. Right now yeah, it's tough for sure that first year.
Oh yeah, man. But the thing is, it's like you get steps, right? You get like this, like, let's train how to sleep, and then, oh, she's starting to walk. Oh, she's starting to grab on things. Oh, she's breaking things.
Yeah.
It's like we got. I remember we had to like bungee cord our dining room table because they would pull the chairs, climb
Oh
on
yeah.
top of it. Oh man,
There's
it
always a
was,
new challenge, right?
yeah. It's always a new challenge, and you're always gonna say like, I can't wait for the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
But it's all a blessing, literally.
Yeah. It makes you a better. I think it makes you a better person, makes you a better man. Um, to go through that kind of thing because I think one of the big things it teaches you about is like not putting yourself first, right? I
Yeah,
think that's something you see like with people that are kind of older and like never had kids or whatnot. You just see like they're always thinking about things through like one frame of mind, like about themselves, like what's in it for me, sort of thing.
yeah.
Whereas like when you're a parent, you're really just kind of throwing yourself to the side a lot of the time and
Oh,
kind of doing what's best for someone else, right?
ask me the last time I bought anything for myself. Like, years now.
Yeah.
Like, they come first. I can care less about me. I'm like, I'll survive. I'm fine with the same t-shirts, same pants, same whatever it is. Like, as long as they're fulfilled and they're happy, I don't care.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's such a mindset shift that happens where it's just like you don't care about yourself as much, especially in terms of like, I mean, obviously you should care about yourself, like your health and well being and
Of course,
whatnot,
of
obviously.
course.
But that's the thing is like you care about the things that matter and you care less about the things that don't matter, right?
Hmm.
Like, you know, like you said, clothing and fashion and stuff like that. Like,
Oh,
it's
that's
like,
stupid.
who cares?
No, but yeah,
Yeah,
unless you're a prick and you don't care about anything else but yourself, then
for
to each
sure.
his own. To
I'm,
each his
I'm buying, I'm buying, fucking clothes at Costco for myself, man. I don't care anymore.
own. Hey,
I,
they got good quality stuff, man.
yeah, I said this to someone the other day. I was like, I look better in my Kirkland shirt than that guy looks in his Gucci shirt with his gut. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
That's what really
That's
matters, you know?
It does, man.
Yeah. So I was also going to ask you about kind of the gym and opening the gym and how that all kind of
Oh
played
yeah.
out and everything with that because that's a crazy time too.
So I know the any listeners that are listening, they're probably like, damn, this dude like is all over the place.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, man, I back in 2020, I my one of my really good friends, Jack, approached me, and he was a trainer at this gym in particular, and he was like, "Hey, they offered me this gym. They're selling it. They're offering it me for this price, but I know you were looking." I was actively looking for a business. This is like when the industry and the nutraceutical side, I was like, tired of it.
Yeah.
So I was like looking for an investment. I was looking at for something where I can just like, hey, I can collect money while I do something else. And so he approached me and he was like, hey, I know you were looking for something. Here's this. And so I told him, he's a bit older than me, and I told him, why don't you go half on this with me? Why don't we make this a thing and we can figure this out? Because I try to involve those who I care about as well. Um, so he was like, okay, and I can tell he was a little hesitant, but yeah. So we brought our wives along and we sat down with the lawyer and the owner of that location, and we made it work. We were like, we can make this work. I still have my job. The women, and I hate, and I'm so sorry if this sounds sexist and stuff, but the women will take care of like all like the paperwork and things like that, operations, and then myself and Jack will take care of like the outside. So they'll be the inside, we'll be the outside. And so we had that understanding, and it was like this thing was like it hit in the right moment. It did, but it didn't because we opened in January of 2020. So
Yeah.
if
Great,
everybody
great time to open a gym.
if anybody knew, 2020 was the pandemic, and we ended up having we were like 2 months in and we had to close down the gym, and we're like, oh my god, what do we do?
Yeah.
um Lisa, Jack's wife, she was a very optimistic lady. She was always like, we'll be okay, we'll be okay. While Molly and I, my wife, we were always like the very conservative people. We're just like, oh my god, we can't spend money on anything. um we have to just save as much as we can because we don't know what's going to happen. But she was very like, no, we'll be fine, we'll be fine. um Long story short, we ended up closing down, but it was such a great, while everybody was struggling with the gym, I had a gym. Obviously we turned off the lights, so Jack and I would like, would work out.
Yeah.
But it was still a scary time because we didn't know what was happening. um and yeah, man, like we made it work, and then we opened back up. We put our logo in. We were gonna have like a great grand opening, and and yeah, and then as we involve more task into us, our views start to change. And since he's a little bit older, I'm a bit younger, we started to kind of just disagree on like the way that the business should have been run and things like that. And on top of that, I was working a lot more and I was traveling more. And it just seemed like to where our eyes weren't connecting anymore.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was traveling, it's just like my heart isn't there anymore. And same thing with my wife. My wife's father ended up getting like cancer, so she was more involved with him. So we're not able to be there anymore. So we were just like, this has to be a decision where we have to kind of step down and just give them the gym, give them give them the entire power, and let them run with this business on their own. And so we stepped down, and yeah, it wasn't anything bad. It just wasn't for us anymore, and they're still succeeding. They're still there.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Persevered, through the pandemic. It
yeah,
was a tough time for gym owners everywhere. Yeah, for sure.
Look, it was a blessing. We learned a lot. We learned. I'm taking that to Bashmouth, where instead of being conservative, I was more now. I'm more like Lisa now, and said, "Let's go all out." Like I have my car wrapped, uh, from the baggage concept for Bashmouth to everything. I went all out. We were just like, let's make this work.
Hmm.
So everything that I learned in every way of like, let's just make this work. I took that mentality into this one. So
That's awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
and that's everything is a. It's what it comes down to. Everything is a learning experience, right?
everything, everything
There's no there's this illusion of failures in life is what stops people from doing things and trying new things, but there's no such thing as failures. Like they're just lessons that you learn that you apply to the next thing for the next iteration of whatever you're working on, and it always benefits you as long as you use that lesson for whatever the next thing is, right?
for sure, for sure, absolutely. And I take that with everything, like with work, with parenting, with business. Like I take a little bit of everything and I put it all together in my way and see if it works. And if it doesn't, then I'll figure something out. Like I have my vision board right in front of me, and it says I wrote a quote that I always look at every day, just because I feel like this one is a um, I have this challenge every day with owning my business or running hostile or whatever it is. But the quote is, "I will figure it out. I'm not letting go of anything until I know it's impossible." So I would try my damn hardest, and I won't not do it until it's impossible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I've heard someone say everything is figure outable, and just reminding yourself that like no matter what it is, like at some point somebody figured out how to do this, and you can figure it out too if it's important enough and you prioritize it enough, you can figure it out too.
absolutely, I believe in law of attraction, and I feel like if you just think about it a lot and you're obsessed with it, there's no way of not figuring it out right then and there. Like you're gonna be obsessed about it, and then the universe will give you everything. They'll provide even without you even like thinking about it. It'll pop up and on your social media like, oh my god, I was looking for that. Like yeah, because you brought that to the universe, and the universe is giving it to you
Yep.
because that's all you're thinking about. It's almost like seeing a car of your dreams, and you're just like, oh man, I wish I had that car, and you're just seeing it everywhere. It's exactly the same concept, right?
Yeah. Like the universe has a way of sort of opening up, kind of like, like Moses, like the Red Sea, just parting and just letting you find a way. But you have to ask for it and you have to focus on it, right?
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
absolutely.
I love the woo woo stuff too.
I do too. I do too. I've been doing the law of attraction though for the last, oh man, since before kids. So I would say like a decade now. I've been doing the secret or the law of attraction, where just like I have my notebook here, and I write down my goals and things like that, and I read it, and I have on my computer a nice vision board, and then I have my own vision board up here where I'm constantly just looking at everything, and I'm hoping that everything like turns out to my vision, and like it's so scary that it works.
It
It
is.
it
Yeah.
truly does. Like
Yeah.
your dreams do come true. You just have to like look at it and obsess with it.
Oh,
Like
for sure.
obsessed with it.
Yeah. I've been into that kind of stuff for a long time. I actually got introduced to it, I think, through my mom. Actually, there was like this movie that came out. I don't know if you've seen it. It was a while ago. I think it's like a documentary style movie. I think it was called What the Bleep Do We Know Anyway? Maybe.
Oh, yeah. No, I haven't.
Um, yeah, so it's all about that kind of stuff, like law of attraction, the secret type stuff. Um, it was all about that, and that was kind of like my first introduction to that. Where sort of like how the importance of thoughts and how thoughts can affect reality, and kind of like some of the sort of science, with quantum physics and whatnot. Um, it was kind of a cool intro to that. And my mom just like randomly took us to that to see that when we were kids because someone had
That's awesome.
told her about it, and that's kind of how I got started on it. But yeah, no, it's freaky. Like I've had this conversation with my wife sometimes too. Like sometimes it's freaky when you're doing like journaling and you're doing your manifesting and you're writing down some of this stuff, right? And then you go back and like look what you wrote down, years ago, and you're like, holy shit, like I got all
That
this
happened.
stuff. Like that
Yeah,
happened. Or sometimes it didn't happen in exactly the way you wrote it, but like a kind of a version of that.
absolutely.
Um, and yeah, and for some reason, like my wife is like insanely powerful at it. Like pretty much everything she went through a phase where she was doing it all the time and like really going hard on the manifestations and writing stuff down in her journal. And it just like all came true. And it was crazy. I'm like, you need to get back into that, man. And like really like, wish some dollars in our bank account and
That's
some
right. Yeah,
crazy stuff because like you are a powerful person. You're like a sorceress or something. I don't know, but like everything you write down comes true.
that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
It does, man. Like we're the same way. My wife and I, we do the vision board, the journaling, like the everything you can think of, and they always come true. Like somehow they come true, and you're not even like you don't even question it. You're just like we just look at each other and we're just like, what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like it's insane, man. It's awesome.
Yep.
So
And some of it is like, I mean, who the hell knows whether it's actual woo woo stuff and quantum physics and whatnot, or if it really is just comes down to just like clarity and being clear on what you want and like actually having something that you're working towards.
yeah,
Because I think a lot of people are just kind of floating around and just kind of whatever happens to them happens. And then they complain about where they are in life or what they have going on. It's like, yeah, but you don't have a direction. You don't have a map. You don't know where you're going. So like, why would you complain about these things that just kind of happen to you if you haven't like consciously made an effort to try and get to where you want to be, right?
yeah,
So there's some of that too. Just I posted about that the other day. Just how clarity is the most important thing compared to discipline or motivation. If you don't have clarity, you don't have anything. You're just kind of spinning your wheels and working hard for no reason. If you're clear on what your goal is, like what your destination actually looks like,
hmm
and then someone, whether it's through a mentor or through a course or just like your own research or reading, and you find out how to get there, and you get clarity on the actual steps you need to take to get there. That's so much more important than having getting motivated or just having daily discipline, right?
yeah. Absolutely, I agree with you. Clarity is definitely something that everyone should have. It's your goal. Like, what is your goal? Where are you trying to go?
Yep.
If you have that, I think you can. I think that's why law of attraction helps because it is goal oriented and it's like that's what you want. Okay, go get it.
Yep.
Go get it.
Yep.
I remember like buying our house. I remember I told Molly I was like, I'm gonna get you a house. I'm gonna get you a house. That was my goal is to get her a house. We had so many freaking obstacles, but I got her a freaking house because that was my goal. It's just like your mindset has to be completely different. Like Bashmouth, the same thing. Like I'm gonna do this. I have to do this. This has to work. It's our only option. We made it work.
Yep.
You
For
know.
sure. Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well, I think that's a good place to end. Let's where can people find out more about Bashmouth and kind of find out what you're doing?
sure, man. So yeah, you follow us on social media on Bashmouth Subs, all one word at Bashmouth Subs, or myself. My personal one is at Giddy Up underscore 15. 15 is my favorite number, so that's why it's there. And yeah, like you can find me there. Like I'm always doing something new. I'm always like trying to figure it out, right?
That's
I'm
what it's all
always
about, man. We're
so
all
yeah,
just trying to figure this shit out.
yeah, man. Go ahead, try some Bashmouth out, man. It's you're supporting a small business. I try to put as much of the journey as possible, like on my personal one, because I know I don't want to bombard people with that on our business one. But yeah, man, I'm excited with everything that's happening. I'm excited for parenting, for business, for relationships. Um, I hate negativity. So I'll stick around with like positive people. Anybody that wants to grow, I'm here. Like if anybody has questions, I'm here too. Just DM me. I always respond to every single person, even if it's through Bashmouth or my personal one. No matter what, you can always get a hold of me.
Yep. That's awesome, man. Well, thanks for
Yeah.
coming on. I appreciate it.
Hey,
Good talk.
thank you so much for your time. Thank you for a great conversation.
Cool. All right, man. We'll talk soon.
You got it, my man. Thank you.
Okay.